how does Epitalon function? Now, Epitalon or Epitalon, however you want to pronounce it, I don't mind, but I'll probably call it Epitalon. That's what I've been calling it for over a decade. Epitalon is this 4 little amino acid structures that are specifically folded together, and they turn on an enzyme. It's like turning on a light switch. And what happens is when you turn on that light switch for telomerase enzymes, something magical happens, because this tetrapeptide, it works on the pineal gland, and it's just 4 of these amino acids that can change everything in your body. So in this video, what we're going to do is describe what we know about Epitalon, what we don't know. The good news is the FDA did take this off of its Category 2 list, and it is now up for voting on Category 1 or up for FDA announcement on what they're going to classify it as and categorize this as. But usually they look at their pharmacy boards, these special boards, and they'll say, okay, they want it to be a yes, and the panelists want it to be a yes. Okay, we're going to let it be a yes. So ideally it will be out of that Category 2, which is where they ask compounding pharmacies, don't compound this until we have more safety data. Now it'll be back in Category 1. But Epitalon is this beautiful peptide that was discovered by Dr. Kovinson in Russia. And the very first thing they did is they were looking at bovine brains, and they found that there's this bigger structure in these pineal glands. And they found that the structure was really important for regulating circadian rhythms. It was also helpful for collagen synthesis, the collagen 1 and collagen 3 activation, so it helped the skin. They found that it lengthened telomeres, so it helped protect the DNA. They also found that Epitalon, as they started to use different derivatives of it, they found there's 4 amino acids that had the most powerful impact. That was the most powerful pulse, and it was easier to make than having all of these protein structures together. And so the very first thing that they uncovered, Dr. Kovinson and his team out of Russia, is they said, what could this peptide actually do, and how does it function? Well, one of the things it does is it's a telomerase enzyme. And telomerase is this enzyme that rebuilds the chromosome caps. And telomeres are these protective caps at the end of your chromosome. Every time a cell divides, they shorten like this plastic tip of a shoelace that starts to fray, and then the shoelace unravels. But telomerase is the enzyme that rebuilds those caps. And in 2003, Kovinson's group showed Epitalon induced telomerase activity and actually elongated telomeres in cultured human fibroblast cells. This direct DNA dial mechanism, and by the way, that study has not been fully reproduced, but there is some newer data from the Kovinson group. But this same group proposed that Epitalon binds a specific DNA sequence, the ATTC, repeated in the promoter region and the on switch of the telomerase gene, behaving like a transcription factor. They also identified candidate binding sites near the retinol gene F379 and RNA polymerase II. The epigenetic research in 2020 is when they have a little more modern data. What they showed on Epitalon, which I think is equally, if not more exciting, they showed the AEDG, Epitalon, stimulates gene expression and neuronal differentiation in retinal and periodontal ligament stem cells, possibly through histone binding. This is an epigenetic mechanism. And so the epigenetics is that layer of chemical tags that switches genes on and off without changing the underlying DNA code. The same paper notes that Epitalon also regulates pineal, retinol, and brain function. So that's consistent with the tissue from its parent extract that was isolated from. So here's what we don't know about it. So almost all mechanism work comes through a single research lineage, the Kovinson school out of St. Petersburg. Yes, this is in Russia, but it's a peptide school there. And the DNA binding model is largely silicose, so it's computer modeled, not directly demonstrated in living human tissue. A 2025 peer-reviewed study by RJ and colleagues concluded that the mechanism remains to be further elucidated. Now, this is what you'll find if you go back and listen to the transcripts or watch the videos of the FDA special meeting on peptides, they're finding that we don't have a lot of human data. And while there are no Western randomized control trials confirming telomerase elongation or reactivation in living people, here's what we do know, is that in lab cultured human cells, Epitalon demonstrated restored telomerase activity at lengthened telomeres. It modulates melatonin synthesis and immune signaling through IL-2 and decondenses that tightly packed chromatin of aged cells, and so a sign of cellular rejuvenation at the gene axis level. So there's some exciting things that are going on with Epitalon, and really from more of an anecdotal data, what we see in our clients is people who have struggled with sleep for years. I mean, I had a patient, she came down from Idaho, and we were doing acupuncture on her herbs, and then finally I said, you know what, let's try some peptides. And so we got her with our medical team. We sat down with her. We reviewed her labs. And she was just devastated. She was getting to the place where she was so tired. She couldn't function in the day, couldn't sleep at night. Her anxiety was through the roof. And we put her on cycles of Epitalon. And literally within that first night of using Epitalon, we gave her a higher dose. We did it 10 days in a row. And what she found is she said that she's never slept that good in 20 years. And it was a game changer for her because she was starting to notice severe depression, suicidal thinking, and just she couldn't find any answers. Any of the sleep medication, the Lunesta, trazodone, those just seemed to make her feel numb. And she didn't like the feeling. She said she'd rather go without sleep. And so Epitalon solved a real problem for her. We've seen that in dozens of other clients who have come in, especially postmenopausal women or perimenopausal women. These women, their nervous systems get so out of whack because the loss of estrogen and progesterone and testosterone production, the circadian rhythms get thrown off. And just by getting that telomerase enzyme, that activation of Epitalon, helped to reset their bodies where they could start sleeping better. They had nice restoration of muscle health. They noticed they could get to the gym better. So I think there's some real benefits to Epitalon, even though it's these 4 tiny amino acids. This falls in the bioregulator category, but it does seem to help the brain. It seems to help the skin. It seems to help the heart. There's so many things that this can do. Now, do we know definitively exactly every mechanism of action? No, but from a longevity perspective, the medicine's not informed by what a double-blind clinical trial can do. The medicine's informed by what do your labs show? What does the data show with your unique physiology? How can we run that through our AI portal and do a digital twin, kind of a landscape and overlap? How often do you need Epitalon? Dr. Covinson, he found people who took it at least twice per year, they lived on average about 7 years longer. So there's some real wisdom there. But what we've seen is that if we can get the right data from your labs, correct the imbalances, remove the interferences, get your body signaling again, it's not like Epitalon, you're on cycles of it. So you're not going to be on it the rest of your life. We want you to have the best performance. We want you to look your best. We want you to feel your best. We want you to sleep your best because sleep is foundational for everything. But we found that Epitalon can get your circadian rhythms back on track. With all of the stimuli that we have all the time, there's nothing that I've seen that works quite as nicely as Epitalon to ground your nervous system and to get you back into your body, to allow your nervous system to relax and finally sleep. And so for those of you who want to go deeper and learn more about Epitalon and what it can do, then watch my next video on some of the functions of Epitalon. We'll provide a link in the show note below. I'm Regan Archibald. I'll see you there.